Hi, I'm Ali and a warm welcome to the Ceramic Repair Studio. So in today's video I have a porcelain cup here which has been damaged in about, I think there's 6 or 7 parts here. These are the two larger pieces and then there's some little smaller ones here. Looking at it, it's a piece of porcelain and it says, I think it's from Coalport. So what we're going to do is we're going to glue it back together again. So we have our items here which I've just taken out of a carrier bag, and what I like to do first is to place them together with some Scotch tape. So if you can get some Scotch tape, that's fine, just as a practice run to make sure that we're not missing any pieces, and also the fact that we want to make sure that it's going to fit nicely. Now I've also got here just a damp piece of cloth at the end to wipe any surplus glue off, and a bottle top here to mix the glue, and I've also got the glue here, and this is quite important obviously, and I use the Araldite 50/50, and this is a slow curing glue, so we've got plenty of time for wiggle room. You don't want to be using a fast drying glue. And so I also have, oh here we are, some titanium dioxide powder, which it just sort of stops the glue from going a bit yellow. Not necessary, but I just add a tiny bit to the glue. So what we're going to do first is take the Scotch tape, and I like to take a little bit off and then just fold it on one end, just so when it comes to pulling it off, you're not there scratching at the ends trying to find where the end is. And I'd just like to get myself prepared with just a few of these. Now, if you use sellotape, it does tend to leave more of a sticky residue. And also we need to be careful with this because looking at it, as you can see, we have lots of gold gilding, and if you put any sellotape on there, the gold gilding may come off. So let's just do a couple more pieces of these. Now I like to first assess, as I've said, so just looking at it, we'll start with maybe the larger piece, and it takes a bit of practice to really look and train the eye in. So that's slotted in quite nicely there. So I'll try to find an edge where there isn't any gilding and just very lightly place the tape on. And then let's have a look just to sort of make sure we've got some more here. So I can see another bit here just to make sure it's all together. Right, and then obviously we can adjust accordingly. So this I can see this obviously because we've got some detail at the back here. It's just slotting in there quite nicely. I can see that from the back. So again, we just place a little bit along there. It doesn't have to be precise, just so it gives us a good idea. I can see this sort of a circular, you can see from in there. So let's just add that in there, and you can, if you can get a surface area which is fairly steady and stable, and then we just get that slotted in. I can see a tiny shard which I'll probably leave to the very end when we're gluing in. If not, you can always replace, but try to keep it as original as possible. I can see we've got another little piece here, so I think we're going to have most of the parts looking at it. I do think we may be missing 1 or 2 pieces, but that is fine. We're just glue as much as we can, get it all together, and if there's 1 or 2 bits, they can always be filled in. Obviously this isn't going to be used for, you know, obviously for cups of tea or anything, because it's going to be, the glue will actually melt, so it will compromise the glue. But for just decorative purposes, you know, if it's part of a set, that's fine. So let's take apart very gently Scotch tape again. So now we know roughly where everything's going to be going. We can then get ready for gluing in place. Right, so to actually glue in place, I'm taking a bottle top here, and I do have my trusted a little stick here, so a little toothpick stick, if you like. And I'm using obviously the araldite, and you need the same amount of quantity of araldite. So obviously this is porcelain, so you won't need too much, so just a tiny bit there. And just make sure you close the lid very, very quickly so it doesn't dry out anywhere else. And then the other part B, and then just apply. And then once that's in, you just want to give it a really good mix through. And you'll know when it's nicely mixed, because it then becomes a nice, as you can see, a sort of more of a cloudy colour. And this is the point where if you do have any titanium powder, you can apply a little bit at this point if you don't want the glue to go too yellow over a period of time. Obviously, if you're going to be painting over it, it doesn't really matter too much. So I'm just going to add just a tiny bit of the powder. Now you only need a little bit. If you put too much in, it can actually compromise the glue. So just a little bit, just to sort of take it back a bit. Right, so once we've done that, we're then going to take our piece. Now you just want to glue on one side. If you glue, say for instance, on this side and this part and stick it together, the glue will want to come apart. So you just want to glue on one side, then place together. I can see there's a big hole here, so that's quite an easy piece to fix in. So let's do that first. So I'm going to glue, let's see, I'll actually glue onto the original, I think, here. So onto the larger piece. So you want to take your piece and just apply. You don't want to be too liberal, but you want to make sure that all the area is covered. Now, if you live in a warmer area, somewhere nice, hot and sunny, you'll probably find the glue will be less thick and dense, and actually you end up with a tighter fit, which is actually quite useful. And remembering to make sure that you're in a well ventilated area as well when gluing. So we're just gluing all the way along on one side. And a bit more there. And then I like to take another cocktail stick and just go through, just to take off any surplus glue. And also if there's any bits we've missed out, it will actually spread over that. And then we just take our little piece here, and then I can see where it goes, and we just slot that in. And then just very gently press. Now, as you can see, we've got a little bit of surplus glue here. So this is when having a bit of kitchen roll, damp, you just don't want it too wet, but just a little bit of damp kitchen roll just to take that off. And just keep gently pressing, because obviously you've added another element in here. So you're never going to get such a tight fit as before it was broken, because you've added in the glue. But if you can press down, you can get rid of as much surplus glue as possible. You also want to make sure from the inside as well. And this is why it's so important to have a slow release glue. It's really pressing in well. Right, so once we've done that, you want to take your piece, make sure it's nice and dry, and just very gently press onto one part and pull away with the other part of the tape, and then you get a tighter fit. I'm going to do this on this side. So hold on one part, pull tightly, and then you get a tighter fit. And then just double check, make sure there's no, as I say, surplus glue anywhere. Right, so let's get on to the next part. So I'm looking here, and we're going to probably do the main part. I might have to adjust it slightly when we're working for the pieces which are inside as well. So we're going to go on the, actually I think I'm going to use this little bits here because you won't be able to see where it finishes, and we just want the glue on one side. So taking our parts here, let's just take the glue and just very gently work all the way along. And obviously the finer the glue, the tighter the fit. And I haven't mentioned before, you want to make sure your hands are very clean as well, because otherwise you can end up with sort of particles of dirt in amongst the glue, especially when you're pressing together, and that's very hard to, well, it doesn't come out. And then just working our way all the way along. And then to the other side bit there. Now you also want to make sure that the item, before you start to glue as well, when you first get your item, that it's completely clean. And obviously this one is a clean break, and there hadn't been messed around with, because sometimes if you get an item and it's already been glued together and taken apart, you've then got to take off the surplus glue, or if it's very dirty, if it's been in a dusty sort of area. So now we're just taking off the surplus again here with another cocktail stick, making sure that everything's covered, and then there's not too much there. Right, so then we take our two pieces and put those carefully together. Then I'm not going to press this in too hard to begin with on this part, because we need to fix the bits in the middle, so you may have to slightly adjust, but just holding it in place just a little bit. So then let's take the bigger parts here, and let's remember, looking from the back, it comes into over here. So it's where it gets slightly more tricky now. So let's just take our piece all the way along. See a bit there. Right, and then come across, and then let's just very lightly place that in. If your hands start to get a bit sort of gluey, make sure they're washed straight away, because you don't want to then be touching your item with glue hands. So I'm just going to wash my hands, then we can get back onto this piece. Right, so now we've done that, let's look to see where we are next. And I can see that slots in quite nicely there. So let's take our piece here and just very gently, and what we do is we just keep going through all of them. I think there's going to be a couple of little shards which we won't be able to fit in, but we'll do the best we can. And then adding onto there. This is quite a tricky piece, I can see that's be difficult to fit in. And then it slots in quite nicely there, and then we'll just pull that together. wipe a little bit, make sure that's nice and dry, and then we just apply a piece of our tape together there. Again, we can push it together and really make sure it's tight afterwards, but we do have 2 more pieces to slot in here. So let's have a look at this piece, and that's got a bit of gold in it, so I think that might be over there. Then we have another piece here as well, which looks quite tricky. I think I may have found the gold part. Right, okay, so let's fix this part in now. Sometimes when you do a practice run, it's actually quite good to take photographs in between just to remind you, which I didn't obviously, but perhaps I should have, but it is quite a good idea to do that actually. When there's multiple breaks, it's quite good to do. Right, this is quite this last 2 pieces are very small and thin, and I think they can be quite tricky to fit in, but it's all like a bit of a puzzle. The funny thing is, what always seems to be quite simple and easy never is. Right, so let's just take an extra cocktail stick and just go through and take off any surplus glue. And on the other side. Then let's come across, so it goes that way. Right, and then we're on to the last little piece here. The last pieces are usually quite tricky. Now, one of the reasons why we glue all at the same time is to avoid a lockout. And what a lockout is, if you, for instance, if you used a fast glue, curing glue, by the time you start one bit and you fix it all together, by the time you get to the last few pieces, if you do multiple breaks, it would also, you'd have a lockout. It would not fit in completely together because obviously you've added lots of glue within the item. So that's what they call a lockout. So it's really important when you, particularly if you've got plenty of small pieces, to actually do it all at the same time. Right, so just add a little bit more glue on here, and then let's take a little bit of our tape here and just make sure that that's in nicely, not going anywhere. And then we just take our last piece, and I think that's going to slot in just, oh perfect, slots. It's just gone right in there. And then we'll just, for our last bit, take another amount and just pull together a little bit to make sure everything's nice and tight. And if again any surplus glue, you can always take off with a little bit of damp cloth. Just do another bit there. Also, because this is slow curing, so I reckon about 24 hours, you can keep coming back to it and keep applying and keep, maybe not applying, sorry, but keep sort of pressing in, making sure there's no surplus glue, wiping it off, making sure everything's nice and tight and hasn't moved. So obviously it will want to move. So you can just keep moving along. And as you can see, we are missing a piece there, but I can fill that in with a little bit of milliput, which I'll probably show you in the next video. So there we are, that's our little piece, our little cup all put back together again. As I say, I will keep going back, I will keep assessing, and you can always take off some of the Scotch tape and reapply some fresh if you feel like it is needed. And if you're not already subscribed, please consider subscribing for more content, and also please give it a thumbs up. It really does help with the algorithm and to push me out to other people. So I hope you enjoyed today's video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Okay, bye.